Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited for today's conversation. Today, I am joined by Ashley Boyd, the founder of Ashley Boyd Marketing. So, Ashley has spent over 16 years turning complex health tech products into clear go to market strategies. But what truly sets her apart is her philosophy that healthcare shouldn't just be measured in features and functionality, but also how they connect and deliver value to the people they serve. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. You have a fascinating dual perspective on both a marketing strategist for digital health brands and someone who has navigated the system for 20 years with type 1 diabetes specifically. So, when did the idea of designing for emotional trust rather than just like clinical endpoints really clarify for you?
Yeah. I'll answer your question in a couple ways, right? I think why did I get started in healthcare marketing? I always like to start with that, right? Because then you'll understand the driver, right? And the focus on this need to build emotional trust. I was going to be a journalist. That was my plan. And then when I was in college, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. For folks who don't know much about type 1, it's an autoimmune disorder. It cannot be cured. You're insulin dependent. It requires very rigorous management. There's a lot of things that you have to suddenly start caring about. You have to make a lot of changes in your diet. It's hard. It can be frustrating. It can be hard. And so I had to embrace this new reality, right? Which is learning how to live effectively with type 1 diabetes, and I was doing it alone. I didn't have anyone in my family. I was a young adult, right? Trying to be an adult, trying to build a career, live well. And oh my goodness, I had this overwhelming chronic condition that I then had to manage. And so fast forward, when I was in Boston, I learned that there was a community focus on really designing for people with chronic conditions, and they really wanted to make the quality of life easier. And obviously that aligned with me. And I would say, now it's been 20 years, fast forward, right? What am I doing now? I think the perspective of living with a chronic condition for 20 years and having worked in with companies that are designing features, solutions that are really focused on improving the end experience for a patient with chronic condition, I began to notice, right? I think we talk a lot about great technology and great solutions, but I have seen firsthand and experienced this lack of lived experience, and not so much of a commitment to designing and truly understanding the pain points that people are feeling and struggling with. So I came up with this concept of emotional trust, really designed around um, ensuring that companies commit to understanding the lived experience. Kind of like I shared with you, if you're a person living with a chronic condition, you feel alone, you feel overwhelmed, oftentimes you feel isolated. You're not quite sure where to go. And sometimes people are simply looking to be seen, to feel like they're understood. Because if someone doesn't feel like they can connect with you and you're not resonating with them, that's ground zero, right? So if you really want to impact behavior change, if you really want to motivate a patient to take care of themselves, be compliant, take their medication, step one requires building trust with people. And so when I think about emotional trust, people kind of laugh. They're like, it's a soft metric. We don't care about things like that. We just want to look at engagement, adherence. And I say, well, hold on a second. If you don't focus on the emotional trust building and the connection with that end user, that patient who is truly struggling and feels alone and just wants to be seen, you're not going to get the engagement that you want to. They go hand in hand. So yeah, that's how I think about emotional trust.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about what that looks like in practice?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say when I work with, obviously I'm a fractional marketer and I work with different companies now. When building a marketing strategy, really it requires an understanding of who's the audience that you're working with. What are their pain points? right? What is it that you're looking to drive from a business perspective? Are you building a new program? Do you want to attract new patients? For companies like Livongo I worked with, you've got folks that you're then enrolling into programs, and you need to ensure that they participate and that they stay engaged in the programs, right? Because at the end of the day, the things that they're focused on is through engagement in this program, we want to be able to demonstrate outcomes, right? Like improved outcomes. So emotional trust is really, it's a lens that I apply when working with companies to ensure that we're auditing and truly spending the time to understand the lived experience, right? Incorporating that into the strategy, the fabric of the company. And then as we think about how to message, how to communicate, how to design experiences in and around a person with a chronic condition, that we are taking those insights and we're applying it into the development of the marketing, the communications, the program experience to ensure that we're optimizing for for that trust.
Right on. So, when looking at your business, I noticed on your site that you talk about something called the 90-day reset, which is a framework for healthcare marketing specifically. What's been the most effective way you would say to get your clients who are often they're used to like sprawling 12-month roadmaps, to internalize that sprint-based mindset that you showcase?
Goodness. So I think I've spent a lot of time working with startups, right? And I think in the startup world, the 12-month roadmap does not exist. And now when you look at, now we're using AI, we've got more tools. The 12-month roadmap just doesn't exist anymore. What I have found, right, is that it's still a struggle. You begin working with an organization, a company has a marketing function, but really doesn't have a plan. Um, this framework I've developed really focuses on getting in, quickly diagnosing a problem, right, or the challenge that needs to be solved. Doing an audit, what does the current marketing efforts look like? What's working versus what's not? But being strategically focused on what's the problem that we need to solve, right? Because then that becomes your North Star for which you can then build a strategy, right? What's the problem that we need to solve? I don't want to just do everything to look busy. I want to make sure that if I'm going to help you solve a specific problem, you are then going to build a marketing strategy and a plan that's explicitly focused on the problems or the business challenges that you want to solve. And so when I came up with this 90-day framework, I was very cognizant of, companies have less marketing budget. There's pressure to move quickly. And so they need folks who can come in, quickly build a strategy that aligns with the business needs, but not spend a half year before they launch a campaign. You need to be able to get into a company quickly, diagnose the problem, build the strategy, and then move quickly, right? So instead of spending millions of dollars on a marketing campaign, I'm definitely more a fan of let's test some initiatives. These are the priority initiatives that we're going to test, push into market to see its impact. So I like to move quickly, right? I don't want to sit and wait. And the companies I work with really value that. They want to see results. We want to test and learn. And in doing that, you get to a 90-day framework where it's the first half is discovery. Then when you're around the 60-day mark, you have the strategy, you're beginning to execute, you're beginning to test, and see the impact of new initiatives. And by that 90-day mark, then you are absolutely in the business of how do we do? What do we learn? What impact have we had on the business? And what do we do next? So I just like to think of it as a strategic process for quickly identifying and diagnosing a problem, building a strategy, testing, moving quickly, and then learning and optimizing from there.
Of course, that makes sense, especially like in today's day and age, we have so much at the tip of our fingers for
Yeah.
research and optimization. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be that it will take a year or up to a year to have this roadmap in place. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's companies spend a lot of money. There's a lot of wasted time working on the wrong strategies. I see that firsthand, right? You see it from, I mean, and the reasons for that are many. You've got folks who don't truly understand the role and the value of marketing. That does happen. You asked me about emotional trust, right? Sometimes there's a lack of perspective that isn't accounted for and input into the strategy, which means people are working on the wrong campaigns. They're not going about, they're not connecting with people in the way they want to be connected with, or even where they want to be connected with. So I see a lot of that in that diagnosis phase of, look, I'm glad that you're in market. I'm glad that you've been working to build awareness, but you really haven't aligned on the right strategy yet. So let's help you do that. Let's prioritize ensuring that you're going to market to meet people where they want to be met and how they want to be connected with. And just that slight shift makes a big difference. And when you look at, do people know your brand? Do they trust you? Do they want to engage with you? And again, from that lens, just living with a chronic condition, it's that confidence that you're able to build. That's where magic happens, right? And that's when companies are really able to demonstrate better outcomes than before, right? It's that confidence, it's that emotional trust that makes a big difference between a company who's doing okay and a company who's doing really well.
Mm-hmm. So I noticed that you've written about how consumer wellness brands in specific, like Aura, they're
Yeah.
setting a new like baseline expectations for healthcare. What types of signals are you looking for to know that a health tech startup is actually ready to bridge that gap between medical rigor and like consumer ideas or desire?
Yeah. So I've worked with a few different companies in this space, right? I think I may answer your question a bit different. I think we're definitely in a day and age where there's a lot of data
Hmm.
to be collected. We have so much data we can capture. I think we're now at a really interesting moment where you have these wearables that are really sophisticated from biosensor data collection. Um, they're being very active to integrate into consumers' everyday life. Every company's doing it a bit different. I'd say I get really excited about the auras of the world. I get really excited about the Lumias of the world. They're actually an interesting company I worked with, who are really committed to making the experience as seamless as possible, but also more specifically, going beyond data. Again, like living with a chronic condition, I have so much data. I don't want to be overwhelmed by even more data. What I'm really interested in, what I enjoy helping companies with, is that translation of data. What does the data mean to Bob, right, who maybe has a heart condition? How do I translate his data into something meaningful and actionable? And I think that's where companies like Aura are just really killing it right now. They've got the trust. They're assisting with the translation of data in a way that's helpful, intuitive, not overwhelming to consumers. And I think it's that translation of data we're seeing that's a big shift right now and a big focus uh, in the consumer wellness space of, how do I take data, translate it into something meaningful, but also do it in a way that it's kosher, because if you're not a medical device, obviously there's some things that you can and can't do. So that's been really interesting to see too, is how can consumer wellness companies, perhaps that aren't an FDA regulated device, how do they too deliver value, and avoid getting scrutinized, right? Because they can't deliver medical advice. So there's a lot of complexity in terms of, what do you do with the data? How do you translate that data and then deliver value to an end user to keep them coming back, right? Make healthy behavior change, and explore ways to integrate into their life in a more meaningful way.
Okay. So this is another question like towards healthcare startups. How do you like build and gain trust from a certain community when there's established brands like Aura or Garmin and Whoop, and there's so many big brands out there now? How do you kind of like bridge that gap?
Yeah. So if in terms of building community engagement, it kind of goes back to the last question, right?
Mhm.
How do you build engagement? Period. right? So I worked with a diabetes company this past year, and it was really interesting. There are so many people with diabetes, and diabetes doesn't have uh, an age, right? It impacts males, females alike, everyone from kids to Medicare age folks. And there's so many different, I'll call them personas of people with diabetes. So it's really interesting. This company I worked with was really interested in finding new ways to connect and deliver value to people with diabetes. And the question at the end of the day is, well, there's so many companies who are also trying to do the same thing. So I'd say the approach that we took from a community engagement perspective was really focusing on, again, like the pain points that these populations faced, um, understanding uh, what insights they could act upon and deliver value. And so there was a population that we focused on in the gestational diabetes space that really wasn't being serviced. There aren't a lot of solutions out there that support women with gestational diabetes. Um, and they really wanted to figure that out. And so, from a community engagement perspective, I spent a lot of time thinking, well, what is the best way to connect with people who are dealing with gestational diabetes? And it wasn't in a way that you would fully anticipate. It's not every provider's office. Um, Facebook, yeah, but Reddit was where it was at. So you have a lot of patients who are going to Reddit. They're having candid, real conversations, and it's it's unreal. I think you get unfiltered conversations in Reddit that you don't see anywhere else. So for the company I worked with, and then also other companies in general, in terms of building engagement, I think the one thing I learned is that just because you build it doesn't mean somebody's going to come and embrace what you've built. You really kind of have to take a step back and say, who do I want to engage with? What are they dealing with? And where are they going? And so we ended up, I helped this company host an Ask Me Expert, right? Where for these, this massive audience of people who are dealing with gestational diabetes questions, it was a chance for them to show up, get answers to real questions that they had in a way that was on their terms and on their turf. And it was really exciting because it was an unfiltered dialogue, right? Where people could ask real questions. And because of that, that had a really, great outcome for the client I was working with in terms of engagement, improving awareness that this company was investing in really supporting women. And so I would say, like, from a community engagement perspective, that continues to fascinate me because we have so many different ways that we can engage now. If you're searching for diabetes support, you're going to ask Google where to go. SEO, AEO is going to influence where you go. You've got forums that you can choose from. You've got companies that you can choose from. And so it's really important when companies are trying to think, how do I drive community engagement? It's not, the question isn't, what do I build? It's more, where are people going? And how can I ensure that I'm connected to that and spend time learning? Because when you go and engage where the community is at, that's where you get real insights that you otherwise would not. That's where you're able to identify gaps, right, that aren't being served. And it just gives you so many ideas that can inform maybe content campaigns, product solutions. So it's that real world perspective that you get when you go to where people are already at, that I think is really powerful.
Okay, thank you, Ashley, for sharing that and taking us through your way of thinking. Reddit is definitely first I've heard as using it as a data tool, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, so Reddit's got a beta tool for marketing nerds out there. That's amazing, right? This is a tool that I certainly use it. I've used it with a lot of companies from like a social listening perspective. You can go and you can search by theme topic, and it helps aggregate, conversations, trends to get a sense of what's going on. It's a really great tool. I would highly recommend, if you're doing research for a new product launch, or if you're doing research on an audience, because you have so many people on Reddit, it
Mhm.
becomes a really powerful data tool and it will surprise you on the insights that you find because people are having real conversations that they otherwise would not if you're hoping that they come to a company page and engage with you.
Right on. So, as fractional CMO, you're stepping into companies at critical inflection points. What feels like the biggest challenge to you to unlocking momentum when you first audit like a new client's messaging?
Yeah, you know, I would say that there's a couple challenges right now that we're facing. As marketers in the industry, I think everyone's using AI now, right? So I am noticing not everyone truly understands the role of marketing, which is evolving, right? So a lot of my job is the synthesis, but also helping with the education to understand the role that marketing can play within an organization. Oftentimes, you have companies that build the sales teams first, and the marketing team second. And so then that becomes a job of, well, here's how marketing can deliver value. Here's how we can contribute to the business. This is the role and the value that marketing can play. And so I think that's something I notice. I think there's also we still deal with a lot of inherent bias, unfortunately. I deal with lots of different personalities. Again, my value is because I work a lot in the healthcare space, ensuring that that lived experience is taken into account. And so a lot of that is kind of pulling back the layers of the onion, asking questions to challenge the way of thinking. Because it's not until you take a step back and kind of assess your approach to your positioning, your messaging, is it aligned with our end users' needs? Does it reflect our brand value? Does it align with our company ethos? These are questions that I get to ask when I start coming in and working with people is your positioning aligned? Other problems that I help people solve are, is your company consistent, right, with its go-to-market messaging? Do you have people telling 50 different stories, or do people have a playbook and everyone understands your why, your how, and your how in terms of how you communicate and deliver value to the people you're serving? So I really enjoy that part of the process, the asking the questions, doing the discovery, leaning in, rolling up my sleeves to truly understand what makes your audience tick, right?
Mhm.
Where are their gaps? What's keeping them up at night? And how are you, said company, delivering value? Are you showing up in the right ways? Um, are you getting people into your funnel? Are you delivering value that keeps them engaged? Are you converting? Um, and are you getting insights from people that give you ammo to keep coming back for more, right? So that's like a hamster wheel for engagement. How do I get somebody in the wheel? How do I keep them going? How do I give them fuel to keep going? And how do I deliver value? Like, what impact have I had, on their health, on their outcomes? That's so important. So again, like going back to the 90-day framework, I just really enjoy working with companies to help them ensure that they've got the right plan, the right strategy, that they've got the right messaging, and then, building marketing plans that they can execute against with confidence. Yeah, I really enjoy that.
Amazing. Your passion really shows through, Ashley. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I can really like feel like that energy from you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's like a curse and a blessing, right? I
Right.
guess some people have to decide, are you a what drives you at the end of the day? Some people just focus on revenue, which is great.
Mhm.
And that's obviously a really important component of business. I just made the decision a long time ago. I'm like, okay, I'm an N of one, but I know I'm not just an N of one. There's so many other people like me who are struggling. And if we look at the market today, I mean, now I've got diabetes, I'm getting older, I've got Hashimoto's. Um, and for folks who have chronic conditions, there's so many related conditions that they're dealing with. And that if you look at just our health outcomes here in the US, we're still struggling. And there's so many aspects to health that we just truly haven't accounted for. And so I keep going back at the end of the day because I live with this, because I understand what populations are dealing with. I understand the missed opportunities, where companies are overlooking, not asking the right questions to really help people. Yeah, it became an asset. And so I like to help people solve that.
Okay. Yeah. So I also noticed, like, talking about like your passion and all that, you recently joined the Springboard Enterprises of Healthcare and Technology to counsel and mentor women-led startups. So when you look at the founders that you're advising today, what are the most common blind spots that you notice they have when trying to build the brand awareness that you talk about so much?
Yeah, Springboard is amazing. So they're a really powerful group out of Massachusetts, and they select a cohort of companies every year. Wicked smart ladies. They have so many people apply to be part of it. And then Springboard has the luxury, right, of going through and identifying companies that they see have potential. So, yeah, and working with these companies, I see a lot of incredibly smart women who don't have all the resources that they would um, if they didn't go through a program like Springboard. One of the things that I do see is sometimes you have people who are so smart that results in obviously the technology that they're building is complex. The biggest challenge that I see in terms of a blind spot is figuring out how to simplify your messaging around a very complex piece of technology into something that the audiences that you're looking to engage with understand. And that starts with, if you're raising capital, do investors understand? If you, as an example, a lot of these companies are um, B2B, right? So they're messaging to providers. But then how do you message to a consumer? A D2C play is very different than how you would message a provider. And so the biggest blind spot I see is really around messaging and understanding, helping these companies really kind of unpack what's the value, not the value that you think you provide, but the actual value, the perceived value that you have, and how to translate that into a way that's effective and really helps you achieve the things that you want. Be that I need to raise capital, I need to acquire new customers, I need people to sign up for my program. So I think that's a big blind spot. But the other one is simply women don't have as many resources. And so that's definitely a struggle, right? For like women CEOs who are trying to build companies. Programs like this are so amazing because they they connect women with the resources that they otherwise would not have. But I would say like one other soundbite I'll just say for them is all the women in that program are so hungry and open and receptive to feedback. It's amazing. Especially when you connect women like that who
Mhm.
are ambitious, super smart. They do not want to be the experts in the room. That's why it was so fun to work with this group to be a mentor on how do you think you're doing? What do you think your gaps are? Where do you want to be? And then figuring out ways to help them, give them guidance, give them advice. It's been such a rewarding experience.
That's amazing. That sounds like a great community to be a part of. How long ago did you join?
So I've been collaborating with them for a while. I actually supported a cohort last year.
Mhm.
So I worked with a couple different companies as part of the program. And yeah, it was really great because I was able to obviously not just help startup founders, but also connect with other experts who are part of Springboard. And the community is great. I mean, I still have contacts that I stay in touch with through Springboard. I'm advising other companies that I've met through Springboard, and so it's definitely a way to give back, and you get value through participation as well. I love mentoring companies. Even now, it's like I've got my client load, right? Of the customers I'm servicing, but then I always make time. Always, I always have a handful of companies that I seek out or they seek me, and I offer mentorship and guidance. I really value it, right? Like I had those folks in building my career who gave me the guidance. I really needed that to figure out how to navigate healthcare marketing as a career. And so women, that's so important. And so I always try and mentor as much as I can. whether they're a client, colleague, you name it.
That's amazing, Ashley. That's amazing. So thinking short to midterm, as you scale Ashley Boyd marketing and handle multiple high growth clients simultaneously, what are the next what's the next level of operational leverage look like for you and your own team, you would say?
Can you unpack that? What do you mean a little bit more?
Like, what does the next level of operational leverage, like your back end team, look like for
Ah,
you
yeah,
and then your own team?
got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goodness. So I'll go back to marketing again. Like the role of marketing is changing.
Hmm.
You have marketing generalists and you have marketing specialists, right? So for me, I do have a good group of people that I work with. Um, a lot of specialists. I think of myself and in building the agency was a little bit more of a generalist. The operational leverage that I'm committed to and actively investing in are finding those experts who really specialize in a few key areas. I think as marketing, the role of marketing evolves, we need people who are really strong in AI, right? We need people who understand, who use AI as an infrastructure to get jobs done. Search has changed, right? If you look at it's not just SEO anymore, it's SEO, it's AEO. Google Ads, the whole landscape of paid advertising is changing significantly as well. Now that you can advertise on ChatGPT and all the things. But then, of course, within marketing, while AI is an infrastructure, you still need experts in specific areas, design, development, branding, right? It's also important to find people who are willing to learn. I don't just look for experts who have been doing the same thing for 20 years.
Hmm.
I'm eager to work with and add people to the cohort um, who have the muscle and the willingness to learn and the passion to show up and deliver impact, right? I think there's some people who just want to show up 9 to 5 and they're done. Marketers don't have that luxury anymore, right? We're doing our job and then we're having to figure out how to incorporate AI, what we can do with AI to optimize how we operate, right? Like what technologies do you use? Um, what are ways that you can optimize your day-to-day tasks, right? And learn from that, build workflows that help you scale what you're doing for clients, that help you scale what you're doing internally. So yeah, I think for me, I'm really interested in adding experts to my space, but be it experts, these are folks who have they have an expertise that they're really interested in. They don't have to have 20 years of experience, but they've got to have the interest to learn. And I think AI is just becoming a requisite. If you're not using AI every day, or if you're anti-AI, you know, that really isn't,
Yeah,
doesn't
like
really
you better hop on board because you're gonna get left behind.
so
Yeah, it's
interesting. I mean, I feel
coming. It's inevitable.
like Gen Z right now is
Yeah.
a little bit more anti-AI, which I truly understand. And I I do hope that, for marketers, it's less of AI is going to take away my job. I think it's more of a how do I leverage AI to help me do my job better, right? And so I think that's the opportunity now. And also like the framing for people coming out of school, AI isn't your enemy, right? It's not. It's how can you leverage AI to deliver even greater value? How do you learn how to ask better questions? How do you learn how to give better prompts? Um, how do you learn how to focus on the things that you do well? And then where can you leverage AI as an assistant to help you get a job done? Your brains are never going away, right? You still have to understand what problem you're solving, how you go about solving a problem. But goodness, like the power of AI now to operate more efficiently and effectively at scale is it's crazy. I mean, I've been in this space for
It
20
really
years
is, yeah.
and life isn't the same.
Life is not the same. Debatably better with AI.
Yeah. 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 I do think it's better. I'm going to be
Yeah.
really interested to see how things evolve over the next couple of years. Um, for folks who are using like the pro accounts, we're not overwhelmed with ads yet. So I
Yeah.
think that's going to be a really interesting experience of, oh my goodness, how do companies design, integrate brand experiences into chat functions to show up, right? Where people are already going. So I think that's also a space like the search space that'll be really interesting to keep a pulse on and making sure that you're continuing to test and flex new muscles in this space. You can't ignore it. It's like a blockbuster moment. You can't rest on your laurels and say, I'm never using AI.
Mhm.
Um, Goodness, if you're not, you're gonna fall behind.
Yeah, like the dot-com era. And like it's better just to like embrace it, because then you get to learn so much.
Totally. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I use it every day in my work.
Hmm.
I'm constantly trying new platforms, new tools. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. There are some days when I'm using AI and it's incredibly frustrating. And I feel like I spend more time having to kind of retool, edit, versus just me doing it myself. So I still there's still kind of it's a balancing act. But one thing that I get really excited about is being able to come into a company that isn't using AI, but wants to figure out ways to enhance operational efficiency. And that's really fun. I think that's something I really enjoy is coming into an organization who doesn't really understand how to use AI effectively. Some companies are terrified. They're terrified, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Especially like in the marketing realm.
Yeah. Right. Is someone going to be able to steal my information? Are they going to be able to steal my trade secrets? No, they're not. But then it's how do you coach people within the company on how to use AI, how to not use AI, right? And then how can you assess and evaluate the impact and value it's providing? Um, you know, there's there's so much work to be done, so much opportunity to help companies navigate this world of AI. It doesn't replace your marketing team, nor should it ever, right? I think it becomes a tool, kind of like computers did back in the day for traditional marketers, right? It's a tool that helps them only do their job better.
I agree. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your insights. This has been incredibly valuable. I really appreciate like your time and openness discussing all these different topics.
Yeah, of course. It was so much fun. Thank you for having me.